reports on citizenship via the Citizenship by Investment program. Some people have been asking whether they can participate in the electoral process in St. Lucia, whether they can vote. And I did the research last week. Yes, they can vote, and specifically, they have to reside in St. Lucia for at least 7 weeks, at least close to 2 months. They take residence in St. Lucia, and they can vote at the polls to vote in any of the island's constituencies where they reside. 452-2979, 452-2979, WhatsApp calls and messages, 716-2026. So, just before we took the break, speaking about RSL, its closure in July of 2017, 7 years now, and time has certainly elapsed quickly since that incident. You'd recall that there's some well-known individuals who called this program and to complain and to criticize the decision that was taken by the previous administration. A lot of people felt that it was something that was unwise, primarily because, quote unquote, the role that Radio St. Lucia played in its capacity as a public broadcaster in terms of pushing local culture and local music, and also in terms of the dissemination of information, particularly during a disaster. One would have thought that by now, those same people would have taken to the same NewsSpin program, and they would have applied the pressure. And wouldn't have been any need, or shouldn't have been, or should not be their need for any kind of pressure to be applied on this administration, including the Information and Broadcasting Minister, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, to reopen Radio St. Lucia. Because, the life of a government elapses quickly. We talk about 5 years. I mean, it's not a long time. It sounds like an eternity. But come next year, the St. Lucia Labour Party would have been in office for 4 years, and then you're looking at elections and so on. I'm just wondering whether there is sufficient time for the SLP administration to reopen RSL. Or maybe as soon as it got into office, it should have seen this as a priority, considering its criticism, considering all the talk about the closure of Radio St. Lucia. So I stumbled upon this program called Mr. Chairman, David Samuels. And as part of the panel would have been former general manager of Radio St. Lucia, Jerry George, and also former program director of Radio St. Lucia, Barbara Jacobs Small. Let's listen to Mrs. Barbara Jacobs Small on the closure of RSL in July of 2017.
To a certain extent, I can understand the burden that Radio St. Lucia has presented for successive administrations. I would not say entirely that all the fault lies with the political administration itself, because and earlier on you alluded to the fact that there has always been that kind of political interference in the operations of Radio St. Lucia.
As far back as the 70s.
Yes. And so at different periods in time, how that political interference has impacted the operations of Radio St. Lucia is in terms of, hiring, in terms of constraining, the operations of the radio station, how it must function, what it must say, who must have access, that kind of way. And so what you find is over time, you really negatively impact the ability of the radio station to vision properly in the context of not just the market, but in the context of what it means to be a public broadcaster that has to really uphold that sort of national psyche and celebrate that national psyche and give voice to all sections of society, so that has impacted the development of the radio station. And so if the radio station cannot communicate, it cannot, demarcate its differentiation in a powerful way, then it's very, very easy for it to get sidelined and for it to slip down, in terms of how people value it and how they see its importance.
You just heard there from Barbara Jacob Small, former program director of Radio St. Lucia. As a matter of fact, my first program director. So again, I'm just asking, why are we not hearing certain people who are lamenting the closure of Radio St. Lucia in the year 2017? Why those same people, a lot of those people are in a good position right now. They're in a better position than in 2017 to effect that kind of change that they would have preached 4 years ago, but they have gone quiet. If at the time it closed, you're stressing its relevance, now that you have a new administration, why isn't this administration doing the hard work, doing what is necessary so that the station can be reopened at least before the island's next general election? Maybe somebody can fill me in on what is happening behind the scenes, if anything at all is happening to reopen RSL. 452-2979, 452-2979. Your WhatsApp calls and messages 716-2026. And let's see, WhatsApp message, somebody says there via WhatsApp. Good day, Tim. The fellas say RSL is open online. And who are the employees of RSL? What kind of programming, if they are online, what kind of programming do they have to share with their audience? Another person says, what's happening? As I mentioned, the Prime Minister and Minister Hilaire as the name in the CIP. Okay, all right. Let's see if we have another WhatsApp message to go through. And somebody says there via WhatsApp, can you imagine Babano Days is this weekend and a flyer pops up in this group on Wednesday? That's to promote the event 2 days before. No banners, no adverts, no promotional activities, not even for Father Albert to promote in church. Is Queen Show still on? I heard Lewis Industries is on a list for the $30,000 needed because jazz sponsorship money cannot be used for anything else. Will residents be informed of change of plans since we saw posters of Queen Show advertised for Babano Days? What I find more disrespectful is on Wednesday. Okay, all right. That's some information. Some I shared with you. Obviously, you can go through it in its entirety. Another person says, yesterday I listened to untold stories about the St. Jude's debacle, and let me say this thing is truly depressing, outrageous, and every other word which the mouth cannot utter. What is happening here? Who is being held accountable for this? And what is happening to St. Jude's? We have a call as we say hello. Good afternoon to you. You are on the air.
What's happening?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm okay. How about you?
I'm fine. Let me say hello to Miss Amanda.
Hi, caller.
I've been listening to Mrs. Barbara Jacob Small.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but lament about the fact about the lack of journalism or journalists we have in this country. I always go back to the days of Margaret Robert Steele, Valerie Albert, Barbara Jacob herself, among others, right? Did you really listen to that analytical review of Radio St. Lucia? Concise, precise, very articulate, and totally correcting.
Mm-hmm.
No political bias. Just tell it as it is.
Yeah.
You understand? And that's what we had before. Great journalism. Great journalism team. And that's what's lacking today. But that's not what I call you for, Tim. I call in reference to the statement that the Minister of Youth and Sports made right at the Cicerone School during the visit of the June. Tim, I'm very fluent in Creole. My favorite language is Creole, though I'm very versed in English. Tim, it's not what the Minister said. It's how he said it. What the Minister said, I heard the apology. But what he said was calculated and deliberate. The minister knew where he was at the time, because if you listen to the clip, he said, my by lovely children. Here is the myth. Here is the legend. And then he said what he said. So no matter how Rick tried to spin it, or anybody else tried to spin it, it's not a Creole. That's just what he intended to say. You understand? He was in the presence of school children. And we can't make excuses for that. And that's inexcusable. You understand? We all speak Creole. We always say a joke in Creole is better than any other joke in English.
It's true.
But it's a time and place thing. The time and place. The minister said he's versed in Creole, and the Creole he got caught up in the moment, and the Creole, all of us do that. But he was aware of where he was. He was aware of his standing in life. He was aware of who he is, and that is inexcusable. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution as usual, sir. Let's see if we have any of your WhatsApp messages to go through. Somebody says there, tagging certain individuals now that he's in a cushy position right now. RSL closure is the least of his problems. Let's see if we have another WhatsApp message. Tim, please check on the World Pediatric Project. The free surgeries for children are being done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. More complicated ones are done in the U.S. U.S. doctors fly to SVG. They come to St. Lucia to check on the children who qualify. I have a grandniece in the project. Another person says St. Lucia contributes through Windwood Island Lotteries Authority. Check out the project. We have another call. Good afternoon to you. This is NewsSpin. You are on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tim.
Good afternoon to you, caller.
Mr. Tim, as a concerned citizen, I want to know what Mr. Ernest Hille do with the CIP money. I don't know if the man want to open a bank in St. Lucia, say that the St. Lucia Labour Party Bank.
Okay, caller, let's be extremely careful. Those are the things that time and place. You can't just make those kind of statements and allegations on NewsSpin and believe that you can get away with it, or the host can get away with it, or the broadcaster can get away with it, caller.
I apologize.
The man has a reputation, and we just cannot just throw things out there and just make allegations. In that kind of irresponsible manner, sir. Okay.
But but there is one more minute. But the reason why I say that, I apologize, but Mr. Tim, but all what you heard is the man had the true value money. Remember true value, how you call him? Give the man so much money, the man said he was going to put a diabetes.
He didn't give him. My information, he did not give him any money, sir. What he did, what he promised to construct this center in St. Lucia. But it has never happened.
I like when I call NewsSpin. I don't want to call NewsSpin and disrespect. I want to have my facts right. So you correct me, Mr. Tim, and I accept that.
Okay, sir.
Okay?
All right.
Have a blessed day.
Okay, you too. Thank you so much for calling, sir. 452-2979. Your WhatsApp calls and messages 716-2026. Somebody says, Tim, the science of RSL is so outdated that all it can do now is to provide jobs for the boys and girls. RSL never operated as a national radio station. I think to a certain extent it did. In the days of yore, sir, in the days when you had certain individuals managing the radio station and also being on staff, both on air and off air. It served a useful purpose then. But later, I think RSL lost its luster, it lost its appeal, and also its relevance. And it was only serving a useful political purpose, during the reign of certain administrations, to the extent that RSL once covered a political meeting of the St. Lucia Labour Party. At the time, the SLP had a public meeting on the Castries Market steps. And the impression was been given that the SLP paid for that outside coverage. I think that at one point in time it was just too blatant in terms of RSL being used as a mouthpiece of political parties and governments in St. Lucia. 452-2979. WhatsApp calls and messages 716-2026. Let me see if I have any of your WhatsApp messages. Somebody says there, every month The Minister for External Affairs overseas and boasting about navigation and spending taxpayers' money and nothing to show apart from fertilizer from Morocco. This minister has been boasting, the Prime Minister in the House and other platforms. This man is the most arrogant and he feels he's a god in Labrie, and I want some investigations into this minister. Okay, all right. Can't read this. Let's be careful, people. Let's see if we have another message to go through. And the buddy says there, I think the young ladies and gentlemen who have embraced sports should be applauded. Also, I think the Minister of Sports should take a cue from the late Honorable Minister Romanus Lancico, because in 1987, young men and women were leading in OECS sports. I don't know if you remember the song that was written and sung about that. I think the government should invest in physical activities for our people to keep them off the streets and into constructive activities. Another WhatsApp message. Somebody says there, Andre Paul was crying out to reopen RSL. Now, not a word. And another WhatsApp message. Tim, the minister needs license to be political leaders. Okay, whatever that means. And another one. Somebody says, Kenson never apologized for his actions. Play the clip of him apologizing and you will realize that he's not. He said sorry and that he is human. It's his first out in politics and he isn't saying that it won't happen again. He also said that he isn't the first and won't be the last. I don't know if you have any comments in the chat room to report on, Amanda?
Yes, Tim, we have a few. Someone said 7 weeks on the island is not enough time for those holding our passports to vote. Another comment, I would really like to know where are the archives of RSL? We claim to be a country who appreciates history, yet we can't properly store those archives. Shake my head. Another comment, Tim, it's October. Aren't you supposed to be having a NewsSpin show where you speak only Creole? Someone says...
So imagine, because it's October, we'll have a NewsSpin program just speaking Creole. I mean, every time it's appropriate to do so, we will speak the Creole. But we will not do that just because it is October. We don't engage in the kind of tokenism that is being practiced by other shows and other media outlets.
Another comment, so that's why the SLP supporters on social media were all out on the platform saying SLP won the 26th election already. They knew the sales of our passports were sold at low, and it seems they also knew those persons buying our passports can participate in the elections. This is just ridiculous. Another comment, oh my god, we cannot even afford lentils now. Soon we all shall be malnourished. Someone said, Exactimo. Tim, it was never about RSL that these individuals were advocating. It was in the name of their political party and the favors that they would be getting from the party. Lastly, someone says, Tim, what if all those CIP citizens come to St. Lucia and take over by becoming politicians? They can quickly buy our people, their lands and businesses and turn us into second-class citizens in our own country because they have the money. That's it for me, Tim.
Thank you so much, Amanda King. I'm sure that we'll have some more updates from you during the course of our program. Somebody says via WhatsApp, CIP passports to all players, make them products of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And another WhatsApp message. Okay, all right. That's another one. Tim, the OKEU and the healthcare situation in St. Lucia is very, very serious than we think. I have a relative who is a doctor at the maternity department. A few days ago, they were performing surgery on a young lady. They could not find Panadol to give to this young lady for her pain. Patients had to go out and purchase medical staples to stitch them. I had my cousin 3 days on a wheelchair. His sister had to take him to St. Jude. Upon arrival at St. Jude, they admitted him in ICU immediately. It is a mess. It is quite serious, the poor state of St. Lucia's healthcare. And the authorities paying a lot of lip service to this, But to reach a point where, there are countries that are providing us with various levels of medical assistance, I mean, it's not anything new. But we should reach a stage whereby we can produce and provide basic medical care to the people of this country. It is automatic that if you are alive, that most possibly you will be ill at some point in time. And in a civilized environment, in an environment where, in a country, especially when you're putting people first, you have to ensure that you put everything in place to look after their well-being, their welfare, their health care. And also, I think it's a tragedy when we have been focusing on this healthcare issue for so long. People have been complaining for an eternity. And we just continue to ignore the cries of the people of this country, because we have been experiencing this long before July of 2021. So this administration does not want to be an exception as far as the provision of healthcare is concerned. We have long passed the period where it is reasonable or even acceptable for you to be saying to the people of this country that we are small and people are going through their own problems when it comes to the provision of health care in the United States and also in the UK and elsewhere. What you are being told as a government, as a prime minister, as a minister of health, that this is the worst that we have been experienced in our lifetime in St. Lucia. And it's about time that you work diligently to make a significant difference as far as healthcare is concerned. Because a lot of you who are making the excuses, you could just travel to Martinique at the expense of the state. And we've had a couple examples since this administration came into office. At least 2 government ministers have received medical care in Martinique, including in France, at the expense of the people of this country. And when the people are ill, no exaggeration, we read it all the time through the WhatsApp messages, you hear it when people call. They can't even get Panadol. Imagine that. You can't even get Panadol. And this is shameful. But let us hear from Mr. Leonard Spider Motut speaking on healthcare, high gas prices, the health and security levy, and the leasing of the island's ports.
When the government of St. Lucia allowed the health situation to deteriorate to such an extent that the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association had to write a letter to lament and complain about the poor health situation and to say that it was the worst that it had ever been. When they say that, I want you to understand what that means. When your health situation is in such a poor state, it means that you will have people dying unnecessarily because of poor health care. That is criminal. When you have a government who has the price of gas, and before I go there, let me just say to you, when the United Workers' Party was in office, they capped the price of gas at $13.95 a gallon, and it did not matter how high the price of fuel was on the world market. The government of St. Lucia is now looking at fuel at about $70. Okay, when we were there were times when it went above $100. Now it's about $70 for a barrel on the world market, and you are paying $16.50. At one time it was $17.95. Now it is $16.50, and they refuse to bring down the price as the price of oil on the world market goes down so that you can get a reprieve in St. Lucia. That is criminal. And when you have, okay, we had inflation worldwide as a result of COVID, as a result of Ukraine war and all of that. Okay? I understand that. Prices went up. So people started suffering. What a United Workers' Party does at a time like that, they will decrease taxes. They will provide incentives. They will subsidize costs to ensure that they give you a reprieve and that you don't suffer too much under those high prices. A Labour Party government, they keep the prices high, they reduce the subsidies, and they put an additional 2.5% levy to make the price even higher, which is a compounded tax. That is criminal. When your government can take your primary asset, and I'm prepared to say among our primary assets in this country are our ports. That's where a government makes most of its money, through importation and exportation of goods that come into your port. When you take that asset, where you have almost guaranteed money, and you give it away to a foreigner, both Soufriere and Castries, and to add insult to injury, you say in Vieux-Fort, you cannot develop that port anymore so that we can have, for example, the cruise ship terminal that we, the United Workers' Party, wanted to bring in St. Lucia to make St. Lucia a home port. You say that for the next 40 years, that cannot be done. That is criminal.
Just up there from the PRO of the opposition, UWP, Mr. Leonard Spider Motut. We have a call as we say hello. Good afternoon to you. This is NewsSpin. You're on the air.
Hello, Tim.
Hi, Rick. Good afternoon to you.
Tim, are you familiar with the name C.L.R. James?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I like
famous writer from Trinidad. I think he wrote the book From Beyond the Boundaries.
Beyond the Boundaries.
Yeah.
But that's what he's mainly known for. But of course, this guy was one of the super giants produced by the Caribbean, and we hardly ever hear anybody talk about him, even to the point that I have to be careful to ask you, are you familiar with him? Because he's so under-discussed. You don't hear that man's name at all. And yet,
I'm very familiar with him. As a matter of fact, I've read some of his books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only book they know him for is Over the Boundary, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which is a classic, but nevertheless he did a lot more. And he was also very involved in politics,
journalism, trade union movement,
journalism, the rights movement, etc. A great man, so great that Derek Walker has written extensively about him. Christopher Hitchens has written extensively about him, and some of the top literary names praise him in some Trinidad. But of course, they do this. I consider Sidney or Derek Walcott, and at home, he's hardly recognized for anything but being aloof. Anyway, I say that to touch on cricket. I'm not a major cricket fan. I used to be in the days of the long-forgotten days of the terrible W's in England, because cricket at that time meant something more than just a game to those of us who were living in England in the time of the Windrush era.
Yeah. The
time when there were advertisements for apartments, and people would boldly put in the advertisement, Irishmen and colored Irishmen and dogs need not apply. I mean, openly.
Yeah.
That's how blatantly racist England was at the time. So cricket meant a whole lot more to West Indians living there, especially when we beat them at their own game. But that might be worthy of a discussion on the diseases when we're trying to tell black people that they are more than they think they are, but less than they think they are too. Okay. So I mentioned that, Tim, and I was going to call and tease you about a little history, very, very 2-line, 3-line history of the Kings. I was going to ask you if you knew who owned the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody called and told you.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, I have the
Did you know before that?
I knew before. I knew before. Yes.
That it was owned by an Indian.
Yes. Because when they won, I mean, the guy was interviewed and all that. I watched the interview.
Okay.
That's on Sunday night.
So a team owned by an Indian, would you call it a national team, Tim?
Well, it is named after St. Lucia. I will not call it a national team.
So it's named after St. Lucia, and that does okay. I don't want to get.
It's not a national team. It's not a national team.
I don't really want to get into deep in that because I don't want to throw any wet blanket on the joys because these days we are in a mood to celebrate if a cat crosses the road safely, which I think is great, because there was a time we celebrated nothing. So wonderful if Alfred has triggered off the celebration mood in us, although I can never tell if it is really what is Alfred, the Walcott, or the cricketers, or the cricket they're really celebrating. I can never tell for sure that they're not just celebrating a celebration. Okay, because we celebrate everything. Every other week is a holiday, no?
Or maybe it's a distraction too. Serves as a useful distraction.
I know. You know, when I say those things, Tim, I know I'm looking for trouble, and I know I'm looking for maple. But you see, I was just reading about somebody this morning, some eminent writer, who said, Peterson, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, discussing free speech and so on with a woman in England, said that you have to be ready to be offended when you're questioned, and the person questioning you has the right to offend you by the question. That doesn't mean insult you, Tim. It's just taking the risk at what I might ask you or what I might say might offend you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get too concerned that what I'm going to say there might offend you, something that needs to be said, and I don't say it, where's your freedom of speech gone? That's what freedom of speech is about. We all have to accept that free speech will from time to time have us risk unintentionally insulting somebody we're talking to or questioning, or being insulted unintentionally with the answer. That's what free speech is about. So I know very well when I say something about who owns the cricket team, that is sounding like I'm not nationalistic. I'm from Bahamas or somewhere or other, or whatever. That is what we have here. But they get ready for well, I say for sure you're not ready yet, because I've been doing it a long time. I do not set out to insult anybody, and I do not set out to offend anybody when I say what I say. What I expect is to be challenged that I'm wrong on what I said factually, and so on and so on. But the matter of offending people by what I ask them or say to them never occurs to me. I do not. If I want to offend you, it will not be by accident. You get my drift?
Get your point?
Good. I have to say those kind of introductions, etc. So there we are. How many St. Lucians are on the team?
You have, at least from my memory, we have about two. You have the O'Geese guy and Johnson Charles on the team.
That's food for thought, isn't it, Tim? Without putting down any wet blanket. That is food for thought, We were ready to treat the King's victory, which I applaud. But let's not put it in the same bracket yet as Alfred.
Yeah, but all the other teams, Rick, whether you're talking about Jamaica Talawaz, the Trinbago Knight Riders, you have also the Ghana Amazon Warriors, the Tridents, and so on. They are made up of a mix of people from different countries, including the likes of England, Pakistan, etc.
What I'm saying is, let's try to understand the thing for what it is. Those are teams owned by a franchise. And I can't wait one day to see a St. Lucia team of all St. Lucians going to play some other country and beating them. That's my dream. I hope I'm around to see that. You know what I'm saying?
But the St. Lucia cricket team has done it before, and they do it at certain levels.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah,
but I get more pleasure out of that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say I get more pleasure in that. But the more important thing I wanted just to say, I didn't mean to take so long in cricket, which is not my forte. Tim, there is a book, I forget the name of the writer. He's an environmentalist and a writer. And he wrote a book about how difficult it is, or rather the reason why so many laws to do with the protection of the environment do not get implemented in small countries like the islands in the Caribbean, or even in countries like Africa. Why they pass the laws, but to seldom implemented. Can you guess why? What the reason is?
Imagine because of the influence that big business would have on governments in those small islands.
You're wrong, and we don't have time, so I'll tell you quickly. Because of familial involvement, most of these islands, it's a family. Well, it's not so much the governments are family, but we are so small, and our government officials and ministers of government, police, and so on are all intertwined. I'll give you an example of
but
that.
that's according to that. But Rick, that's according to the book. But there's also a big rule. No. Hold on. Outside of that, there's also a big rule that big business has on pharmaceuticals and agricultural products and things of that nature.
I'm not disagreeing
That's
with
also
that.
an issue.
I'm telling you that he did his research and he found that the biggest problem was that.
Right.
It's not my book, And I'm about to give you an example of it. Tim, there was a time in St. Lucia where the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, their wives, and some of their closest friends held the major offices in the land.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
You tell me, since you have the information.
John Compton.
Mm-hmm.
John Compton was premier or prime minister, whatever he was, with all the extensions of that. His wife held certain positions in the, certain leading positions. His brother-in-law held certain, etc., etc. And very often, I can call one particular story, but I won't. But one particular story couldn't get going because of the relationship between the leader of the familial relationship between the leader of the opposition family and the family of the prime minister, who was the one with the spotlight on him. You see the kind of problems we have in this country.
You're saying a particular story where could not be carried on radio, TV, or newspaper?
Say that again?
The story that you're making reference to, you said a particular story could not be carried. Are you referring there to the electronic media or the print media?
No, I'm saying a particular story did not get the official treatment it deserved.
Okay.
The official reaction it deserved because of those familial ties.
Right.
In other words, the story became personal for too many people who are connected.
Mm-hmm.
So the country now that needed a story like that coming before the courts and setting standards, it never happened. So the country was denied that. Are you following what I'm saying here?
Very much so.
Now we have a similar situation coming up.
What's that?
I've got a clip of a Labour Party AGM recently, where Lisa, whatever her second name is,
Jawaier?
Emma Hippolyte, the Prime Minister, all three felt the need to call on supporters not only to protect the victory, but also to protect Ernest Hilaire, because everybody's criticizing everything is Ernest. What, according to Lucia, whatever her name is, what is it about Hilaire that they want to take him down? And that is how the war gets generated. If Ernest Hilaire is getting criticized, Ernest Hilaire has all the trappings to defend himself openly. Am I right or not?
You're correct.
The taxpayer pays for all kinds of communication and staff for members of government to make that situation clear to the public. You know?
Because as a public official, that ought to be your motive. Whatever allegation that level at you, you come and you just clarify it. That's all.
All right.
And it ought to work wonders. It ought to work in your favor.
And there's a consequence to all these things. Let us say Ernest Hilaire is found wanting in a serious way. Like, for example, right now, we've been begging for press conferences in relation to CIP. We've been begging for all kinds of things. In fact, I suspect that is what has made him the focus that they were referring to a while ago.
I don't think much is about press conferences, Rick. I think it's more about getting clarifications, getting explanations to certain issues. You understand?
Well, one of the ways we try to get that is by representing the people with our questions.
No, but he has convened a few press conferences. So it's what
On that
happens,
subject?
is what comes out of the press conferences. Remember at one
No.
particular...
I want to correct that.
You remember at one
Ernest
particular...
Hilaire
No, hold
had
on.
that press
Hold on,
conference.
Rick. Hold on. Because what I'm stressing to you is that he has hosted a few press conferences, but what comes out of it? When he's asked the question, how many passports or shares have been given to Galaxies? At that particular press conference that he said, he will be seeking permission from the entity. If you get my point.
So there you have.
So
you have that.
So you
You-
had a
you
press
have that.
conference, but what comes out of the press conference, sir? That is the issue.
Well,
Yeah?
it's more like that is icing on the cake, if you like. But there are a number of questions that have not been put to him. There are a number of questions that have been answered with "I don't know," and so on and so on. But my point to you is, nothing will be done. Well, I'm not saying nothing will be done about it. When you have your fellow ministers who seem to know even more than the press and the people, and they're taking advance time to tell their people not only to protect the victory generally, but to come out and protect Ernest Hilaire particularly.
Yeah.
That is, isn't that terrible?
It is, absolutely.
That is almost inciting enemy. Okay. And on the other hand, there's also the leader of the current opposition. The leader of the current opposition, I want to put this delicately, is also being criticized, if not loudly yet, for not going further with this scandalous matter about our CIP, because he has relatives or people close to his family in one of the involved or suspected or allegedly involved companies.
But who is criticizing the leader of the opposition and against the background of what you just said there?
I don't care who's criticizing it. The point
Rick.
is...
No, hold on, Rick.
Pardon?
This has never surfaced. This particular issue, the leader of the opposition has never surfaced.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm saying this particular issue that you raised there, the scenario that you brought up there, as far as I know, has not surfaced in the public domain.
Oh, that's why I tell you it is quietly for the time going on. That because there have been allegations, etc., naming a particular local company involved with passports and so on, the CIP, and there are allegations going around that, and these people have a relationship with the leader of the opposition. And I said, for the moment, there's quiet disgruntlement going on among, not necessarily even among the government people, the Labour Party people, but his own people who figure he should be stepping on the gas.
I don't know that to be the case, Rick. And you're a guy, you like evidence.
You
like evidence. I don't know where you have taken this.
I am not offering you evidence. I am telling you what I know. So just please accept it as Rick Wayne's word.
No. I'm not accepting this one, Rick.
All right, you don't have to.
Because very often, right, you listen to certain media reports and you hear suggestions are so and so and so and so. Where it's coming from? Who are the people who are making the suggestions? I don't know, and I can vouch for that.
But Tim, the more important aspect of what I'm trying to tell you is that we are such a small country that quite often the people we expect action to be taken against or to be pursued or whatever are related to top officials. And when there is any dragging of the feet, it immediately is put down to the fact that these people are related. And there goes the general feeling about democracy and fair play and whatnot. So these are things that I am warning St. Lucians to keep their eye on and to demand answers to whatever questions they may have relating to these matters. We cannot have St. Lucia being ruled or not, or ruled well or badly, depending on who is the family and who is involved. So it doesn't matter whether you've heard this or heard that. I am making a general statement as I introduce the book, that we have to be very careful and very watchful. I mean,
as a matter of fact, Rick, I know time is against us, so maybe I'll just give you 2 more minutes. As a matter of fact, the leader of the opposition has been the one who's been most consistently critical of the government's handling of the Citizenship by Investment program. irrespective of whether he has families involved in the program or not. And maybe Martinez and the others took their lead from him. He has been leading this particular crusade for a while, sir.
Tim, you know, and I'm not disputing what you're saying there. Listen to me carefully. I am telling you there is quiet disgruntlement, fairly or unfairly, about the leader of the opposition is not doing enough about a particular company. He's not making any noise about a particular company. I didn't say it's real, and it says, I'm telling you that's what happens when people are in politics and they are familial arrangements and familial connections. So we as the people have to be very careful. It works both sides, on the opposition side and on the government side. So we have to keep our ears and eyes open. That's what I'm saying, you know. So I'm not going down the road you're going at this point in time. So this matter of protect the victory, which is bad enough, and now to have 3 government people saying protect Ernest Hilaire because he's they're going for him. They want him to bring him down, when in fact what they're doing is criticizing him in his office or asking questions of him that he is reluctant to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A quick look at what's happening in the chat room. Amanda King, before we conclude.
In the chat room, someone says, in parts of the woods, you cannot use the expression bloody in a formal setting, much less in a classroom. I think this incident was an unfortunate one. We should not be too hard on the minister, though, because I heard he made a public apology on the show. Another comment, Pip bought all and placed them in each ministry. Don't forget, Pip said strategize first and then take action. He said he knows how to play the game. This man is up to something. Another comment, you cannot get a pink slip and be standing outside the same institution. Nothing happens as industrial action is treated differently from regular employment laws. Someone says, I just cannot understand why healthcare isn't a priority. This makes me so angry. Another comment, the unit at OKEU shouldn't be called ICU, it should be called I don't see you. Another comment, team, has the government paid the hospital bill in Martinique? There has been no update on this. And lastly, someone says, there are 4 St. Lucians on the King's team. That's for me, Tim.
All right. Thank you so much for that update, Amanda King. And that will do it as far as another edition of the most monitored talk show in the world. My name is Timothy Poleon. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Goodbye.